he was at a conference in Denver, and he was boarding the Greyhound bus to go to Vail that would take him on home to Eagle, Colorado. But he was told the bus was full, and he wanted to talk with employees at the Greyhound terminal. And so a security guard, after Philip, was insistent, which is not an evil thing, right? If you're insistent, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just saying, well, let's discuss this further. Let me have a supervisor. A security guard comes up and says to him, "You're trespassing. Please leave." Then the officer calls the cops, and of course, Mr. White also calls the cops. He has right to be there. It's a public place. It is Greyhound is a common carrier open to the public, right? When common carriers involved in commerce are doing that. He's blind. Okay, he's the man who's blind, and he asked the security the security providing police officer, "Could I feel your badge?" Because if you're blind, you don't know. So put his hand forward to reach forward to the chest of the officer to touch his badge. That's like assault. You can't do that. And that the officer objected to this act, right? This act of the blind to touch something, to feel, make sure that he was truly a man who he said he was, and not just someone impersonating an officer employed by the administration of the building. Well, the officer yanked his arm behind his back, pushed him forward so hard that this old man crashed his face into the ticket counter. There was a deep gash on his forehead. He was bleeding. Officer Chafin handcuffed his victim and put him behind bars. And when I hear about broken men, Chris Sexton, after he had been hit by 15 bullets from sheriff's deputies in Saudi Daisy, he was handcuffed. Right, he was mortally dying, and he was handcuffed while he was bleeding all over the tarmac there in front of the Off-Road Technologies garage there that handles off-road diesel engines. And then this poor Mr. White's in jail for 8 hours. Nothing. He was not charged, and the chief of police said that he could not find a breach in the guidelines in the incident. We reviewed the case. We didn't find any violations of policy. We were always looking for ways to improve. And there's a quote in the story I can't find the author's name here. A quote that says that the police officer's aggressive bullying response was inexcusable. That's the attorney that helped win the settlement. Well, the question again is the chief of police, and do we have a concern for reform? I think we need to have a concern for reform. We need to see how things are going, and of course, you, my listener, know we need to have. As we hear national headlines, what I want you to do is take what you know and care about things locally. So care, as Helen Burns Sharp does, about the sale at kind of a loss by the city to a for-profit land venture with some apartment buildings downtown. That's an example. Tim Boyd on the county commission is asking you to call your county commissioner. I think they're meeting in just an hour. The Convention and Visitors Bureau, and Tim Boyd is asking for your support. He wants you to support him through your representative. Have you done that? Hear these stories that are taking place in national economy and say, I can't affect things nationally. I can't stop abortion, but I can do what's right here. I can call people I know. I can email people I know. There's a journal in Harvard called the Harvard Journal of Law and Public Policy, and it has made an argument that the 14th Amendment forbids the slaying of the unborn. The 14th Amendment adopted in 1865, in many ways a very evil amendment to the Constitution, which federalized the Bill of Rights. It applied the Bill of Rights to the states, not just to the federal power. It says that no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, and property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. There is a student at Harvard, Joshua Craddock, who's challenged the premises of both the pro-life side and the pro-abortion side, and he says that the minimalist position, the originalist position says that, well, the abortion doesn't talk about, the Constitution doesn't talk about abortion, so we can't say that it forbids it, or that it requires the defense of life. He says one might look to dictionaries of legal and common usage, the context of the English common law tradition, and cases that attempted to construe the meaning of the text in a manner consistent with original meaning. Using this methodology, it is reasonable to construe the 14th Amendment to include prenatal life. The structure of the argument is simple. The 14th Amendment's use of the word person guarantees due process and equal protection to all members of the human species. The preborn are members of the human species from the moment of fertilization. Therefore, the 14th Amendment protects the preborn. If one concedes the minor premise that preborn humans are members of all of the human species, all that must be demonstrated is that the term person, in its original public meaning at the time of the 14th Amendment's adoption, applied to all members of the human species. Read about that, and you hear, well, how is it that our state and its high officers forbid the defense of the unborn in those counties where they are routinely and profitably destroyed? The sheriffs in those counties should shut down those clinics and say, well, come on, sue me, and keep those clinics barricaded for years. Prevent these people from destroying the innocent. There's another story out of Bayview Park in Pensacola, Florida, in which a U.S. District Court Judge Roger Vinson says in a ruling Monday that a cross in a city park has to be removed. The American Humanist Association, of course, fighting to protect the rights of humanists, atheists, and other non-religious Americans, filed a case in 2016 on behalf of 4 people in Escambia County, who said that the cross at Bayview Park violates the separation of church and state. So the cross has to come down because we are an officially atheistic country. Now, let me ask you this. If the country is officially atheistic, why are people who call themselves Christians sending their children to approved school systems such as that here in Hamilton County? Why are they agreeing to that? Are these children forced at gunpoint to go there? Or has there been a form of economic coercion applied to these families who feel that they have nothing to do but just to comply? Give my children over to a school system that doesn't have any crosses either, and in which crosses are forbidden, references to crosses are forbidden, references to the Lord Jesus who died on the cross for his people. Those are also forbidden because official policy says there has to be a separation of church and state. Why do people who profess to be Christians and who go to church and piously pray on the Lord's Day turn around on Monday and say, see ya, as Joe and Jill, the children, get out to the school bus and go through the gates of hell? David Tulis.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader,